Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the Medium in the Middle. On this podcast, I share my journey as a developing psychic medium, as a Reiki master teacher, as an Akashic record practitioner, and anything else that's thrown my way. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to episode 179. My name is Stephanie. I am the Medium in the Middle, and I am very excited to bring you today's episode. This is coming to you in real time. I literally just shut off the call with my mentee and I said, could I use this for a podcast episode, please? And she was like, absolutely. I know this lesson is going to help so many of you. So I'm still fired up. It's fresh in my mind. It happened, within the last hour. So let's bring it to the podcast. I'm not feeling called to pull a card for the podcast today, so we are going to skip that portion. However, I do have some listener mail I would like to share. In episode 177, Nona came to say goodbye. I shared a story about how I had a dream of a loved one that came to say goodbye before they passed, and I got this email of a similar experience from a listener. And I just wanted to share it on the podcast because I feel like it's one thing to come from me, but just to really reinforce that message of not thinking you're crazy and accepting the messages that you get, I wanted to share another very similar experience that was emailed to me. So I asked permission if it was okay for me to share this on the podcast. And they said yes, so thank you for allowing me to share this story, and I hope it resonates with you and just helps you trust yourself a little bit more. The email just says, "Hi Steph, I loved your latest podcast about Nona. I recently had an experience like it regarding my middle school guidance counselor, who I was very close to when I was younger. We lost touch after I went off to college. Almost 3 decades later, out of the blue, I started wondering how she was doing. I am embarrassed to say that I Googled and Facebook stalked her. I found out that her husband and son had passed away and she had lost her daughter to cancer just 6 months prior to my search. I also discovered that she has Alzheimer's. I became very worried that she was alone in a nursing home somewhere. However, I was unable to find out where she was and I had to eventually let it go. A couple of weeks after this, I had a very vivid and symbolic dream. In the dream, I was taking cover in a house from a large tornado heading towards my neighborhood. Across the street was an older woman sitting on her front porch, as peaceful as could be. Not a care in the world, even though a tornado was heading right at us. I yelled for her to get inside, and she just looked into my eyes and smiled. The woman was so familiar to me, but I couldn't place who she was. The tornado swept between our homes and no damage occurred. The woman was still sitting on her porch, eyes closed with the most peaceful expression on her face. When I woke up, I knew this woman and the dream itself was very important, so I wrote it all down in my journal. Fast forward 6 months later, I did another Google search on my guidance counselor friend. Unfortunately, this time I found an obituary. She passed away a few weeks after I initially started wondering about her. As I was reading my journal entries around that time, I was amazed to discover that she died the day of that vivid and intense dream. It all made so much sense then. I apologize for the long email, but I wanted to share my story with you because your latest podcast resonated so much and reinforced that I needed to stop doubting myself and these synchronicities when they happen. Thank you for that email. Thank you for sharing with me so that I could share with the listeners, because this happens to all of us. We all sit in self-doubt. We all feel like we're making it up. We all feel crazy for going on Google and Facebook. But with a little bit of trust, it holds so much meaning. So a great reminder from this email to write things down, journal, and part 2 of writing things down in your journal is include dates. Because I find, especially if you're developing in any type of way, Reiki, mediumship, psychic, just knowing last June this happened, or, a year ago I was feeling this way. It's really nice to see your growth, and sometimes our journal we'll have it for years, and it's just really important to keep those dates so that you can see that growth. Just a quick Reiki training update. My next level 1 is in September. My next level 2 is actually at the end of July. It still has a few spots left. This hasn't happened in a very long time. That course hasn't sold out. So if you still want to get in your Reiki level 2 training this summer, July 22nd and 23rd, still has a few spots left. The next one will be in September. And then my Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass is happening on August 12th. Save the date. I will leave all the links down below to register for level 1, level 2, the Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass. And if you are one of my Reiki students who wants to do their Reiki Masters this year, please get in touch with me because we are booking into the last few months of the year. So if you want to be at your Masters this year, send me an email and we will talk about it. So today's story comes from a mentorship call, and it perfectly embodies what I love about mentorship calls. And this mentee brought this story forward, and she said, "So I think I know the lesson, but I want to ask you what you think as well." This is what happened. It is someone that we have been working on mediumship. We have been raising her prices over the last few months. She has been working with gaining confidence and even moved into doing group readings. So she did 2 group readings during the time. And she's also one of my Reiki students. So she started raising her Reiki prices as well as she's moving through her practice sessions and moving towards her full price offering. So she said, "So I had this session last week that completely threw me off, and I just can't stop thinking about it because it threw me off of my groove." She was like, "It was a distance Reiki session. And, for distance Reiki, I just have to show up, open my computer. I'm good to go. I'm feeling confident about those. So when I opened up the computer and I said, okay, we have Reiki today, the woman said, oh, I actually wanted mediumship." And she was like, oh. And she said, the first thought that came to mind was that, well, this Reiki session is $55 and my mediumship sessions are $111. And I didn't prepare for mediumship. I prepared for Reiki. So, I haven't meditated. I haven't tuned in. I haven't done anything. And she was like, oh, okay, just give me 5 minutes and I can tune in and I can start and try to do mediumship. But we were booked for Reiki. She said, then I noticed that on Zoom, her background was blurred and there was people in the back. She said, I saw some people moving in the back and I said, oh, who's there with you? And the lady said, oh, my husband and my aunt are here. And then she's like, so then I was all flustered that there was people there. So for the first 30 minutes, she connected. She was getting all yeses. Her grandma came through, lots of yeses. Everything was flowing. She's like, and then the last 30 minutes, everything went south. She's like, then I started getting all no's. Everything I was saying was wrong. Is this person passed? No, that person's still alive. Did this person die of cancer? No, I don't know what you're talking about. She was like, everything was all no's. And she's like, then the people in the back started walking around. Then they turned on the TV so I could hear them watching TV. And then at the end, she's like, well, I actually just want to know about the future. And she was like, well, I don't know about the future. She's like, well, can you pull me some cards? So then my mentee was like, sure, I'll pull you some cards. So then she started pulling cards. And at the end of it, it was just a whirlwind. And she was like, what the hell just happened? And I'm sitting there smiling. And I was like, okay, let's break this down. Like, what do you think the lesson was here? And she said, well, I was going back to pricing and because $55 and $111, I was getting things right for 30 minutes. I think I was getting, information was flowing for the value of the 30-minute reading. So, 30 minutes for $55, that seems fair. She's like, but then it started going downhill. Then I started questioning everything. Then I was like, do I know anything? Can I connect to mediumship? What's going on here? I feel so flustered. There's people in the background, their energies, the TV is on, her background is blurred. I can see people moving. I don't know what's going on. I just feel like all these things. She's like, thank goodness. A few days later, I had another mediumship reading that went amazing and it brought my confidence back. She was like, but this reading just threw me off. And I said, okay, so we have a few takeaways here. Number one is Absolutely. Over the last few months, you've been raising your prices to prices that feel fair. So the reason why we raise prices and we start at $20 and go to $40 and we go to $60 and then eventually we're at $300 or whatever your end goal is a fair exchange. So when you're first learning something, $20 feels like an amazing fair exchange. When you are more experienced, $20 no longer feels like a fair exchange. That feels icky. That feels taken advantage of. And especially in the energy realm, we need that fair exchange. So I said, number one, yes, you are right. You felt fair with your exchanges. You were flustered with what you were expecting to do and what they wanted. And I also think Spirit definitely had your back and they showed up for that 30 minutes. Gave you the reading, gave you everything, the yes is coming through, and then they're going to teach you a lesson on boundaries. I was like, this is a massive boundary lesson. A boundary around your time. All these other lessons also came up around like, does she need to update her website? Is it clear of what Reiki is versus what mediumship is? And I say you will always have the people that book the cheapest thing on your website that want mediumship readings. There's a reason why mediumship readings are $300 and Reiki is $100 an hour. There is different outputs. The trade is different. I was like, but it is our job as business owners to handle this. I was like, so you could have handled this in a few different ways and I will give you all your options. And when it happens again in the future, because it will happen again in the future, tests come back to make sure you learned. This is what you're going to do. I would say, oh, you were hoping for mediumship. Okay, you actually were booked in for an hour Reiki today, so we can do that today, and then I'll send you the link so that you can book in for mediumship. It's just a different price and a different length of time, and it's actually a one-on-one session for both of these, so it would just be best if you could have that session when you were alone. It just makes it easier so that I can focus on only your energy, but if you wanted to do a group reading with your husband and aunt present, we could also look into options, and I can send you pricing on that. But let's jump into the Reiki. Redirect, you're in charge. Even though you're on Zoom, you're still in my office. I am still in charge of guiding the session. I am still the one that is responsible for delivering you exactly what you booked. You booked for Reiki. Let's jump right into Reiki. Oh, but I wanted mediumship. Great. Your next appointment could be mediumship, but today you booked for Reiki. Why can I actually not do these two? Just so you know, before a mediumship reading, I'd have a lot of preparation to do. I do a meditation. I sit for 15 minutes. I make sure that I've been sober for 24 hours. Whatever you do for preparation. So I said option number 2 would have been, oh, you wanted mediumship. Okay, well, I actually usually prepare for mediumship readings, so how about this? Let's take a 15-minute break. I'll send you an invoice for the difference in price. If you can get that paid between now and 3:30, I'm going to take a few moments to not be so flustered and settle in and call in spirit, and then we'll start back at 3:30 and we'll get you the mediumship 45-minute reading starting from then. Again, you are in charge. If there's a difference in price, your client isn't going to magically send you extra money at the end of a session. It is your job to manage that. So I said, Spirit was testing you on your boundary of time and value and fairness. They were doing a lot here. And I said, also, this brings up the conversation of mediumship readings. She's like, I don't think I actually say one-on-one on my website. I was like, perfect. So this is a good opportunity to say mediumship readings are one-on-one. What happens if it's a pair? How much is that? Put that on your website. So a one-on-one reading is X amount. A paired reading is X amount. And if you would like a group reading, send me an email and I'll send you pricing and information. This makes it very easy that if someone shows up with a gaggle of their whole family wanting a mediumship reading, it's like, oh, great. So we're doing Reiki today for you, but if you would like to book again for the future for the 3 of you, I can send you options on that. You are in charge of your business. And her response to this conversation was, Steph, I know you talk about boundaries all the time. She's like, but I didn't realize how many layers of boundaries there were. She's like, I didn't realize. She's like, of course I'm a people pleaser. I pulled out my cards. I started doing mediumship. I started doing everything. And it was a good reminder of like, she knew what she was doing was wrong and she knew she shouldn't be doing it. And then she felt flustered and then she paid the price because it made her go into a downward spiral for a few days until she had that great reading to bring her back up. And no one should make you feel like this, but you also can't allow anyone to take charge of your sessions. When you come into my room for a Reiki session, it is fully my job to make you feel safe. You're on my table. I am in charge. I am running this session. I say when we start, when we end, when I want you to breathe a little bit deeper, when I want you to relax. When the music's too loud, I'm going to turn it down. If it's hot or cold, I'm in charge of that. I am in charge of the session. That is my job. You are paying me to run this session. I was like, remember that. You are the one in charge. You can walk into my Reiki session and say, oh, I was actually hoping for mediumship. And I will say, oh, I can refer you some great mediums at the end, but let's jump into our 60-minute Reiki. My whole plan for our hour isn't derailed because you hoped for something different. And then as a side note, I was like, P.S., this is exactly why I stopped offering mediumship and I have stronger boundaries of spirit sneaking in. I was like, because what would happen? Every single Reiki session, someone would say, oh, I'm just hoping for someone to show up. And if someone didn't show up at the end, they would say, oh yeah, the Reiki was good, but I was just really hoping to hear from someone. I was like, nope, you know what I need to do? I need to make the expectations very clear of what you're getting in a Reiki session. If you want a mediumship reading, book mediumship. If you want a Reiki session, book Reiki. So that I know exactly what you're delivering and people aren't coming in disappointed or expecting something else. I was like, especially when Reiki and mediumship currently on your website are different prices. The value is different, the preparation is different, the timing is different, what you do beforehand is different. I talked about this in a prior podcast episode about why mediumship readings are so expensive, I think is what I called it. But it's not just the 45 minutes sitting in front of you. I prepare for 24 hours before. I have to make sure that what does my day look like? What does my day before look like? What am I doing? How's my sleep? How's my food? How's my rest? How's my energy? The day after, I'm recovering. I'm tired. It takes a lot of energy. So I'm like, you're not just thinking about that 45 minutes that you're sitting in front of the client. You're thinking about the preparation you did yesterday and the preparation you will do tomorrow or for the hour after this session or the wind down before. I was like, all of that is included in the energy output of this session. I was like, so I think Spirit is teaching you time boundaries, money boundaries, charging, and also reminding you that you are in charge. You get to decide. Yes, of course, the people pleaser in us, we want to give the client whatever they want, but it is our job as the service provider to say, okay, great. And you booked this service today, so that's what I can offer. And we can look at mediumship for another time. Or what's going to happen? And I'm happy that she learned this lesson quickly because I find some people can get trapped here. People will keep booking her Reiki at $55 while it remains that price and keep wanting mediumship. And then it feels unfair. And then she feels burnt out. And then she might get sick. And then her mediumship might not to be so clear. And she was like, why did it all of a sudden get not clear? And I was like, I think for exactly the reason that you said. A 30-minute mediumship reading was a fair exchange. I was like, but you thought you had to go for an hour. I was like, what you should have done was say, okay, great, you want mediumship? So they're just different prices, but I can actually do a 30-minute reading for you today. Just give me 5 minutes to get settled and then we'll jump right in. Who's actually there with you? Were we doing for multiple people? So I thought this was a great reminder and story to bring to all the business owners that are listening to this to remind you that when your boundaries are tested, it's a test from the universe to see how you respond. And then, even if you don't do it, she's like, I knew I was people pleasing. I knew I shouldn't have done that. That's okay. We learn from it. And I was like, and you know what the good news is? This will never happen again because you will never allow it to happen again. The next time someone who booked for Reiki pops on the screen and says, oh, I was hoping for mediumship, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Are you going to relearn this lesson? Or have you learned? So it was just such a perfect example of when I say that the universe will test you and it wants you to see what you're going to do, this is exactly what it's doing. Here's a situation. We're going to throw you a curveball and now you're ready to level up. Now you're ready to see what you're going to do in this situation. So thank you so much to that mentee for allowing me to share this story with you, because I think it's so powerful and it's such a good example. And I know so many business owners listen to this, and I'm sure you have all had some type of experience similar to this. If not, you might. I want you to remember this in your ears when something like this comes up, challenging you and your boundaries. And what are you going to do? How are you going to react? You are the business owner. You are in charge. You are the Capitan. You are the CEO. People don't get to walk all over you unless you allow it. So remember that. So I really wanted to bring that to the podcast. So thank you to that mentee for allowing me to share this, because this is mentorship. This is the reflection that we do. This is when we look back and we make sure we squeeze every single lesson out of this experience to make sure it never happens again. This is what we do together. We look at these things and we say, how many different ways can we look at this situation to make sure we get everything we need from it? What's your perspective? What's my perspective? What could other perspectives be? What else do we think we're missing here? And that was 20 minutes of her session, making sure that all of that was covered before we can move on. So such a beautiful experience, such a beautiful lesson. I know that this will never happen again to her, because now she has the tools and the reflection to move forward. And also it gave her a lot to think about, expanding her offerings, adding in group readings, adding in paired readings, having a cost for that already in your mind. You're not just making it up on the fly. What is a fair trade for you? So the last thing I will mention this episode is that the next round of my mentorship is open. We start again at the beginning of August, and this round will run till November. Mentees in the middle. I have a few spots left, 2 spots left. So if you are looking for a mentor in the Reiki, mediumship, or business development realm, those are my wheelhouses. That's what I love to work in. I will leave the link to apply down below. The application is just to ensure that I think this program is a good fit for you, and I think we are a good match to work together. We work very closely over those 12 weeks together, and I just like to make sure that I believe I can help you, we're a good fit, and what you're looking for is something in my wheelhouse. So if you're looking for Reiki, mediumship, or business development, I'll leave the link down below to apply. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I release new episodes every Wednesday. If you also haven't left a podcast review, please do so. I really, really appreciate it. It helps my little podcast grow. We are turning 4 next month. I'm so excited. I can't believe it's been 4 years in your ears, but lots of exciting things to come for the birthday, the podcast birthday. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week with a brand new episode. Bye, everybody.